Again, thank you for joining us, everyone. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes to join the meeting. We're just waiting for some of our board members. So thank you for your patience. And as you join the meeting, please mute yourself.
Good morning, Sarah.
Morning, Tony. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
I think we're waiting on just a few more people from the board, and then we'll be ready to get started.
Sarah, remind me, I think that Jeff Kraft had a conflict with the meeting today, right? But we'll be okay going into January because we're shifting the date and time for him. Well, for everybody, so I should say.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
And so far I've seen Brian Martin, Greg Winkler, Andy Frodhard, and Jordan Beasley. Bob Kraft, or I'm sorry, Bob Pfeiffer, are you on? Okay, Tony, well, it's your call if you'd like to start the meeting now or wait a few more minutes. We're 2 minutes behind.
All right, I'll give it another minute and we'll get started. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second Broadband Advisory Board meeting, and thank you for being here. And the first thing we're going to do is take attendance of membership. So I'm going to ask Sarah to go ahead and do that. And I just want to remind everybody that this is a public meeting and that we are being recorded. So go ahead, Sarah, take attendance, please.
Great, thanks. I will start with our board. So Rick Garcia or Greg Winkler?
Greg Winkler, present.
Thank you. Patty Salazar or Brian Martin?
Brian Martin is present.
Great, thank you. Shoshona Liu or Bob Pfeiffer?
Bob Pfeiffer's present. Sorry, I was having some audio problems getting in.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so we have a quorum. And I will continue on with our advisory board non-voting members. Kate Greenberg or Jordan Beasley?
Jordan Beasley is here for Kate Greenberg today.
Thank you, Jordan. Commissioner Katie Anthus or Delilah Collins?
Delilah Collins is here for Katie Anthus.
Thank you. Carrie Payock or Stephanie Bennett?
Carrie Pykoch is here. Good morning.
Carrie, thank you, Carrie. Sorry.
No problem.
Catherine Keegan.
Here.
Thank you, Catherine. Catherine Redhorse or Jennifer Lewis?
Present. This is Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. And Andy Frohard.
Yeah, Andy Frohart with the Attorney General here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tony.
All right, thanks everyone. And let me just a couple of quick comments before we go through the rest of the agenda. One of the things I would like to ask the entire membership of the board to begin considering is as we go into 2021, are there additional organizations or agencies that you think would be appropriate to add as advisory? And as we move forward, because again, the purpose of this board is to be advisory to the governor in terms of things that we consider important for broadband in the state of Colorado. I want to make sure that we have the appropriate attendance. And the other thing that I would offer to all of you and to the public as well is you can also suggest and bring ideas to us for agenda topics as well, things that you think are important for us to discuss as an advisory board. So, we want to make this as inclusive as we possibly can. We're starting with just kind of getting the board structure established, and we will evolve it over time depending on how we move forward and the types of issues that we are addressing. But I always want to make sure that we're considering trying to cast a broad net, because as we all know, broadband is a very complex issue throughout the state, and the more voices that we have providing us input will make the advice that we provide to the governor that much more rich. So just something for everyone to consider. The first topic we have on the agenda after that is to go through the approval of our minutes. And I would like to ask the voting members to offer any comments you have on the minutes in terms of changes that you think are required. And if there are none, then I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Chair, this is Bob Pfeiffer. I will go ahead and make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Any discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none, I will just take a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from our previous meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, we have approved the minutes from the previous board meeting. The next topic in terms of just housekeeping and getting the organization established is approval of our bylaws and charter. So I will ask again for any additional comment or feedback from board members in terms of the both documents. We've tried to incorporate all of the changes that were suggested, and we've also highlighted here in the documents the things that were updated. So I'm sorry, which one of you're the bylaws is the first one you got up. Thank you. Okay, so we're just any feedback, additional feedback on the bylaws.
I didn't have any.
Okay. All right, hearing no comment, again, I would like to entertain a motion for approval of the bylaws as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Greg. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, thank you, Bob. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we will take a voice vote on approval of the bylaws for the advisory board. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you. Bylaws are approved. So the next document will be the charter. And again, I just open it up for any additional comment. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir. I don't think we made many, if any, changes to the charter document.
Yes, the only official change is the advisory members, which are non-voting members. This is the list that we have compiled at this time.
All right. Hearing no comment on the charter. Again, I would like to entertain a motion for approval of the charter of the advisory board. I'm staring at you, Greg.
So moved.
Thank you. And Bob, I'm staring at you again. All right.
I second.
All right. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Hearing none. Let us take a voice vote. All those in favor, approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. All right. Any abstentions? All right. Thank you. The ayes have it. We have approved the charter as well. Thank you for that. And so now what I'll do is we'll move on to the discussion and approval of our new policies, which is another thing that we do have to establish as a board. And so at this point, I believe I'll turn it over to Andy just to explain the policy documents that were shared with you prior to the meeting. Let's go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, Tony, thanks. We have two policy documents that are probably the first among several that'll come out of this board. The first is a conflict of interest policy, and that policy is a template that's been used around the state. So it's a pretty general policy. I really didn't make any revisions to it from what some of the other state boards have used. But in essence, what the purpose of it is to ensure that the board is remaining impartial. It specifically precludes any direct financial interest for board members for anything that they may be discussing or voting upon. And it encourages board members, if they think that there might be a conflict, to disclose it openly so that we can discuss it. It also gives them the option to come speak to me or to somebody with my office to discuss it further to assess whether it could be a conflict. And then finally, the thrust of it is if there is a conflict, that the board members abstain from discussing it or from voting on it. So I think that's most of that policy. Do you want me to go into the other one, Tony, as well right now, or?
Let's just stay on this one because I want to have separate motions and votes on each policy. So any questions or comments from anyone on the board? This is important material, but you might be thinking, well, will there be any potential conflicts of interest? I think the thing that we need to consider is that it's important just to have this framework in place for any of the various boards and commissions that exist at the state level. So.
This is Brian. I feel like the conflict of interest policies are pretty thorough, so I appreciate the effort that's put into these. And
Okay. Any other comment? All right. If not, would like to entertain a motion to approve the conflict of interest policy.
I will put that motion forward.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll just take a quick voice vote. All those in favor of approving the policy, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, so Andy, you can move on to the second policy document, please.
Great. The second policy is a public comment policy. The core aspects of it, we've kind of taken and pulled from other boards. So that's where a lot of the language comes from. But the essence of the policy is to have some parameters surrounding public comment. So Obviously, I think as most people in attendance are probably familiar with the executive order, a big part of this board is to allow public input. And I won't go into the litany of reasons why public input is important for government, but among them, it's important so that the board is fully informed of the public's views. The board can incorporate the public's views as it's making decisions. It can account for the values and beliefs of citizens and different stakeholders while it's going about making its decisions. And in essence, there's this recognition that having a dialogue between government and citizens and other stakeholders makes for better decision-making in government. So we want to fully support that. I think Tony has plans, and I think the board has agreed that there's going to be public comment periods for every meeting. But with that, we do want to have some reasonable parameters just to make sure that the commenting does not get, for lack of a better word, out of hand, so that people don't usurp the time that's used. I've been at public meetings where without having some parameters set, I think people will go on for 20 minutes explaining something that could probably be better explained succinctly and have opportunity for comment within a much shorter period. So there needs to be some order to public comment. Order is going to allow people, multiple people to comment. It's going to ensure that the board can continue its business, and it will ensure that all the discussions remain civil so that we can actually have meaningful dialogue about some of these issues. So with that said, the thrust of the policy is, you can see there's basically 5 policy statements that the board allows a time for public comment, that public comments be submitted at least 24 hours in advance through the board's webpage. So for those in attendance, if you haven't seen that, there is a link that you can click to pull up and submit your request for public comment. And then the chair is going to start the public comment period by going through those comments or requests for comments that have been submitted in advance. And if there's additional time that's allowed, the chair can open it up for comments that weren't submitted in advance. So the time for public comment, we've limited it to 3 minutes unless allowed, additional time is allowed by the chair. So there may be instances where the board, any of the board members may have questions or have other thoughts or other things that they want to discuss with the person making the public comment. That's allowed. But we do want to encourage folks to keep their comments limited to 3 minutes as much as possible so that we can keep the board discussion moving. So, and then finally, we're not going to allow profane, obscene language. I think Tony's going to have a lot of, Tony said he's going to have a lot of leeway in terms of what he'll allow to be discussed, but the idea is this needs to be a professional forum that promotes the dialogue. There shouldn't be intimidation or harassment, certainly nothing illegal. So that's the essence of the policy.
Thank you very much, Andy. Any questions from any board members in regards to the policy document?
This is Jordan. I don't necessarily have a question about the policy itself, maybe just a suggestion for how we conduct public comments at future meetings. I think it's good to give the public a chance to comment prior to discussion on substantive issues. And so perhaps moving the comment period to earlier in the meeting before those discussions, or allowing discussion or public comment prior to each one of those substantive items would help inform the rest of the board members in our discussion.
Mr. Chair, can I add to that conversation?
Yes, please, Bob, go ahead.
Well, so Jordan, I think I have some reservation in what you're proposing. I think that we should allow public comment on things that are being heard by the board that we're taking official action on during, prior to our action, but during the opening of the public comments of that subject. I think there should be general public comment on items not on the agenda, prior to our business actions. Does that make sense? I think that if we put a little structure around that, that would give some more open forum for miscellaneous discussion prior to public hearings, and then have public hearings associated to the individual hearings. Would that be acceptable?
That makes sense to me.
Mr. Chair, would that be acceptable? And the rest of the board?
Yeah, can you just run me through that one more time to make sure I understood the flow, just how it would flow?
So a lot of public groups that I'm part of, what we do is at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, you allow general public comment on items not on the agenda or previously heard. You could add that in there, just as an open forum limited to 3 minutes. If there's no one that wants to just have general public comment, then you would close those here, that public comment period. When you open up an action item, so if we have to take formal action on an item, you could ask the public to comment on that action prior to us taking that action. So you can open up public comment for that agenda item that's actionable. And then once you close that public comment period, then the board can have discussion and then take a vote.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm okay with that. That you know, it makes sense in terms of how we can manage. And I've seen meetings go, you know, a variety of different ways, and so the one that you described tends to be one that's probably more consistent, I think, with a lot of municipal meetings and things like that as well, right? So. Yeah,
that's where I'm getting that from, as well as Dr. Cog handles it similar as well, and a few others. So I think that would just, because there could be items that come in public comment that's not on the agenda that may be of interest to the board, that might inform us on future agenda items. So you may want to allow that opportunity for the industry and the public to share some potential ideas.
Any other comment from other board members about Bob's proposal for the meeting structure?
Tony, that's consistent with all the public meetings I've attended over the course of a short career. I would say, and I would reinforce Bob's comment, that I'd like to see the public comment at the beginning of the meeting rather than the end. I just think that that's a little more palatable to the public.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen it both ways in some commission meetings that I participate in. It's on either side. So again, I don't think that this is something that you know I have some dogma about. I think we can adjust it, and probably what I'll do, Bob, is have Sarah reach out to you and kind of just lay it out so that we get it right in terms of how to structure it going forward. So
sounds good.
Okay. But regarding the actual policy itself, is there any other issues or concerns about the actual policy for the comment itself?
No, I have none.
All right. Thank you. Well, then I would like to entertain a motion for approval of our public comment policy.
So moved.
All right.
I second.
Thank you. Motion made by Greg, seconded by Bob Pfeiffer. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I will take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed to nay? All right. Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Andy. And Sarah, at this point, I'll let you just take over in terms of just moving us through the next set of agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item is a broadband map update and discussion by Megan Gernert from the Colorado Broadband Office. Megan, are you available?
Yes, I had to find the unmute button.
Okay, I'll stop sharing now. She has something to share.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you to the board for inviting me to present today. What I'm going to be sharing is this new mapping visualization tool that I've been working on. My hope is that all of you can use this tool and share with other folks to provide an understanding of the current state of broadband in Colorado. I was going to post the link in the chat so you guys can follow along. Find my chat. Where did it go? Sarah, are you able to post that in the chat for me? I can't seem to get that to pull up.
Yep, give me 1 minute.
Okay. But I'll just dive right in. Sarah can post that in the chat. So this tool is called a story map. Basically, all you need to do to use it is keep scrolling down. There's also these navigation buttons that will always be in the view that you can use to jump around if you need to. I'll be scrolling through sort of quickly just so that we can get through. So you might not have a chance to read the text while I'm scrolling. Feel free to visit the link and read that in your own time. So this first section is just the basics. This is just to make sure that everyone knows what we're talking about when we say broadband, and have a little bit of background before we dive into the maps. So the first map that we'll be looking at is, this is the data that the OIT GIS team puts together. Our team works directly with ISPs to collect coverage data twice a year. I always like to give the disclaimer that this program is entirely voluntary. We have a very wide range of cooperation from providers. Some give very granular data, some just forward their FCC data submission, which is not ideal. And then there's some that refuse to participate altogether. Because of this, our data does have inaccuracies, it does have data gaps, and we're always working to collect better data and find ways to supplement that data. So this is the view that you see when you open the Colorado broadband map, which you can find the link here. This is an aggregation of all the reported wireline and wireless data, fixed wireless data that we collect. You'll see that satellite and mobile data are not included here. That's because satellite data basically blankets the entire state and obscures the view of everything else. So we leave that out of the visual so that everything is easier to see. And then mobile data does a little bit of the same thing. We also are mostly focused on mapping that fixed home broadband connection. Before we go further, I just want to point out that these maps are all interactive. So you can click down here on the legend to see what the colors mean. You can zoom in. You can make it full screen. You can search an area with this little search box. So if you wanted to explore your areas of interest, you can do that. So I'll keep scrolling down. This new layer that you see here, it looks different, but it's actually the same underlying data that we were just looking at. What we've done here is basically overlay this data on a known structures data set. So basically any area that has a structure that could be served, we put that database together and overlay the broadband data on top of it. It's similar to the broadband serviceable location fabric, if you've been paying attention to the federal mapping discussions. So it's kind of our version of that. What's cool about this layer is that it shows the serviceable locations that have no coverage at all. The colors you see here are basically served and unserved. The green is served, yellow is unserved, and then that red is just a subset of the unserved, which shows the priority areas, which are under 10.1. We just highlight those so that we can see the areas that are in need of the basic services. So I'll keep scrolling down, and we have this tool where you can really compare those two layers, which it's kind of cool to see how the same data can look a little different depending on how you format it. I'll just zoom in a little bit to show an example. So over here on the left, this blue area is basically a wireless propagation model, but we don't really know what's in there and is that actually serving any structures. So if you slide this over, you can see, okay, those green areas are actual structures that have that wireless service. So it's kind of a fun tool that you can use to explore and compare. All right, I'll keep scrolling down. The next section is speed tests. So the state of Colorado uses Ookla crowdsourced speed test data. It just helps us get a better idea of the user experience. And it acts as a check on the industry reported data. So I'll skip all this text. You guys can read that later. And then we have a similar comparison tool here, which it works the same way as that last one. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I think this is evergreen right here. This green blob, you've got a little bit of yellow creeping in there. So the green is over 25.3, the yellow is under. And then if you slide this over to see the speed test data, you can see it looks similar, but that red and yellow is really creeping in a little bit more. So it's a really interesting view to be able to compare those two data sets. The challenge is trying to understand the reasons behind this data gap. We don't know if it's because the ISP isn't delivering those speeds, or if it's because no one's subscribing to those speeds, or maybe people are just taking speed tests when their internet is slow and they're frustrated. So those are some of the questions that we have to consider when we're analyzing this data. All right, moving on. State funding. So I think most of you know there's two main buckets of state broadband funding. We have last mile grant funding from the Broadband Fund, and then middle mile infrastructure grants from the Department of Local Affairs, and those go to local governments. So this map looks pretty simple. It doesn't look very exciting, but just the fact that this represents nearly $82 million in state investment, I think is pretty cool. There's 25,000 homes being served directly through Broadband Fund grants, and the Dole grants provide that critical infrastructure that helps improve the reliability and the reach of the broadband networks across the state. If you're interested in taking a deeper dive into those infrastructure projects at DOLA, I highly recommend this other story map created by Nate Wallowitz and Virgil Turner over at DOLA. So that link is here. That will give you a more detailed look of the actual infrastructure that's being put in place with these infrastructure grants. All right, so the last section I have here is federal funding. this first view shows all of the funding deployed through the high cost programs. The data is from 2016 through 2019. All of that data is publicly available on the Universal Service Administrative Company website, USAC. So this data represents these 4 programs that you see here. If we open up the legend, you'll see that a lot of this deployed funding is for services that are less than 25.3. A lot of these programs started before that threshold was raised, and the funding lasts for 6 or 10 years. So we're still seeing funding deployed for those lower speeds. And then we'll scroll down and see, I'm going to highlight 3 programs that are kind of in the early stages. The first one is RDOF, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. Auction 904, which is the first phase of RDOF, completed a couple weeks ago. And in Colorado, we had 8 winning bidders, totaling about $250 million over 10 years. You can see those areas on the map. One thing to keep in mind about this, there's still a long road ahead. These companies have to file their long form application, then the FCC has to authorize the funding, and then they have, I think, 6 years to build out those services. So you're not going to see this service tomorrow, even though it's big in the news right now. And then before auction 904, there was auction 903. This was part of CAF phase 2, Connect America Fund phase 2. In this auction, there were 5 winning bidders in Colorado, totaling about 17 million. One thing I'll point out here is that companies were allowed to bid below the 25.3 threshold in this auction, and one of those bidders was Viasat. So all of this pinkish red that you see here, the build out requirement for those is 10.1. And they have 6 years to complete that deployment. So we're not seeing any of that data yet on the USAC data set, but once they start reporting that deployment, we'll begin to see it in that data set. And then last but not least, we have the USDA Reconnect program. This was created in 2018. They've done 2 rounds of funding. So far, I think they're still reviewing applications from round 2. So far, there are 3 projects that serve Colorado. You can see those in purple here. 2 of those are for Emory Telecom. They received an award in each round. And then this one up in the Northwest is Yampa Valley Electric Association. They received their award in round 2. I know these areas don't look big, but these are some of the hardest to reach areas, and these awards are going to make huge impacts on those communities. Okay, so that was a lot of information, but I just want to make sure that you all have the tools that you need to understand the broadband landscape in Colorado. If you're interested in exploring this data in a more interactive way, we have the Broadband Board Data Toolkit, which is linked here. On that application, you can turn on and off layers and zoom in and just explore the areas that you're interested in. And as always, you can reach out to us if you have questions. And I think I'll turn it back over to Sarah. And I'm willing to take questions if we have time in the agenda.
Thank you, Megan. And first of all, thank you for the presentation. And I hope all of the board members and just all of the folks participating in the meeting itself found this information to be useful. And I think you will also see just how complex a mosaic this thing called broadband infrastructure really is. And there's just all kinds of interesting challenges with mapping all of the various sources of funding and what's advertised speed versus real speeds that people get, and all the challenges associated with speed tests and so forth. And I just really appreciate Megan, you putting this together. And I also wanted to say happy birthday to you, because I know this is also your birthday. So this was your birthday present. You get a chance to present to an advisory board. So I'd like to open it up to any member of the board, any of the board members, for any questions or feedback, comments, anything.
Mr. Chair, this is Bob. I just want to thank the team of putting this together. This is a great backdrop to the purpose of the board and where the state needs to go. And it's good to baseline why we are together today. And pictures are 1,000 words. So I appreciate the team putting this together and doing an awesome job. And I know it was no small challenge. It was actually probably a very large challenge to make this a reality that we can share with not only the board, but the public. So I just want to thank the staff for doing that.
I'd just like to say, job well done. It's very good. It's very helpful. I see us being able to use it as we move forward. So thanks a lot, Megan. Very, very nice. And happy birthday.
Thanks.
This is Jordan. I want to agree with Bob and Greg. Job well done, and thank you for the entire team. And I think this will be very useful in telling the story to folks that don't necessarily have a background in broadband as well. So thank you, and yes, happy birthday.
Guess I would like to fourth that. Thank you very much. This is super helpful. Certainly from perspective of an agency that works a lot with stakeholders like everybody else, but on a day-to-day basis, I think this will really help us as we engage with the public and try and build out some of the data capacity we have. So this is really great. And thank you very much, OIT, and happy birthday as well.
Great, thanks. And I will mention that we're always looking for ways that we can support our stakeholders. So if there are data sets or layers that you're interested in seeing, we can figure out a way to incorporate those into, whether it's a map or one of our applications. You just let us know and we can help figure out a way to view those.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We did have one comment from the public. Would you like to hear that comment now about this, or wait until the comment period later?
I think we're running a little ahead of schedule, right? So yeah, I'm willing to take the comment now, sure.
Okay. Amy, if you're available, would you like to make your comment or question about the speed tests?
Sure, thank you. This is Amy Switek. I'm with Philanthropy Colorado. And I just had a question about the speed tests and the level of participation that you're getting on those, and how the public is aware of it and using it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just go back to this map real quick. It's kind of a big data set, so it takes a bit to load. So all of these light gray areas, which may not stand out very well in your view, those are areas that we don't have any speed test data. This is data from all of 2020 aggregated into one data set and averaged. So there are a lot of areas that we don't have any speed test data. Let's see, this is Ookla data, which we have a contract with that company. They run speedtest.net. They have, oh, I forget the numbers, but it's in the millions of speed tests in Colorado per year. So we have a big data set. It's the most geographically accurate data set that we have access to, which is why we chose to use it. So I think we could do more to promote that speed test in some of the areas that we're most interested in. For example, if we know there's a community that is struggling with service, we can do a targeted campaign to get those folks to take the speed test. The other data gap that we see in speed tests is if you don't have service, you can't take a speed test. So some of those areas with no data could indicate that there's actually no service. So that's part of the analysis that we have to do, is figuring out why there are no speed tests. Is it because no one's taking them, or is it because there's no service in order for people to take them? So hopefully
Megan,
that answered most of the question.
Yeah, and Megan, I just would like to add that I know we, from the broadband office perspective, we try to encourage people to take speed tests. It's part of, you can go to our website, you can take a speed test, and also I agree, there are times when we do try to target a specific community, to get them to participate. But again, it's a voluntary thing, so it's a work in progress.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I apologize, but we had a question from one of our advisory members, Delilah Collins. She's having some audio issues. Delilah, are you able to speak now?
Can you hear me? Oh, there's the box.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
You can end your share.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Chair. My question that I had was in regards to the public comment policy, and I apologize, I really did try to get this in. What is our process for following up with those that make a public comment? For example, we did have a comment come into CDE. I responded to it. However, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to copy all of the board members. So that's my real question, is like, how do we follow up if we're not able to get to all the comments on the board meeting day? What's our process for following up?
Thank you for the question. And I think there's kind of two parts to it. One is if there's a question that gets asked during the meeting that we aren't able to get to, what staff will do outside of the meeting is reach out to that individual, provide them with a direct response. I think what you, and if I got this wrong, just let me know. I think what you mentioned is that there was a question that came into you directly. And if that's the case, what I'd like to have any of the board members do is make sure you make Sarah aware that you got that comment, and we'll help you with the response. So that would be our process. So, because again, we want to make sure that the staff, and this being Sarah, and to make sure that we're consistent in communicating with folks that ask questions. So did I answer your question, Delilah?
Yeah, that definitely answered my question. And will Sarah then let you know that the comment came in, and so that others will know what the response was? Okay,
Yes.
so I just wanted to make sure that I knew the process. And the comment actually came to me from Sarah. So I did follow up and copy Sarah on the response, so that did happen. I just wanted to make sure that if we do provide comment back from the individual agencies, everyone has an opportunity to hear it and know what was said.
Okay, well, thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties. This is the new world we live in. So, all right, thank you, Sarah. I'll go back to you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a update on budget and legislation from Kate Sneed. Kate, are you available?
Yes, I just have to find all the buttons. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update on the supplemental request for funding through the governor's office to the state legislator. So in beginning of November 2nd, Office of Information Technology submitted a supplemental budget request for the current fiscal year through the governor's office for $160 million for broadband infrastructure. 20 million of that was taken out and used during the special session for the Colorado Department of Education grant program for broadband. And since the special session, the Colorado Broadband Office, DORA, DOLA, OIT, the governor's office, et cetera, have been working on updating it and kind of using feedback we've heard and experience from the special session to finalize the request for the remaining 140 million to go forward to the legislator on January 4th. And so my understanding is that, well, I shouldn't say my understanding. I submitted the final documentation to the governor's office for that process. And so that document will be published through the governor's office on January 4th. And the Office of Information Technology will be presenting to the Joint Budget Committee on January 6th on our budget requests for the year and have been asked to speak to this. So we will be speaking to it at the Joint Budget Committee on the 6th of January. But I just wanted to give that high-level update. I know that Dora will also be presenting to the Joint Budget Committee and might be speaking to it, as will the governor's office on the 6th, and the Office of Office of E-Health Innovation and the Commission for Colorado Commission for Indian Affairs. So much more to come January, and all of those agencies and partnering and working together to propose the best way to really improve infrastructure throughout the state of Colorado through that $140 million. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Kate. Any questions on that quick update? Obviously, there'll be much more to follow in January as the recommendations become public and we go through the public hearing process in that time frame. All right, Sarah, hearing no questions or comment, I'll let you move on.
Okay, great. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Catherine Keegan. She's a part of our advisory board and she's representing the Office of Future of Work. She has an introduction and overview. Catherine, are you available?
I am. Can I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think you might have to grant me access, but you might be in the process of doing that. There we go. I think I got it. All right, everyone can see the presentation now?
Yes.
All right. Great. Well, thank you for giving me a chance to introduce myself and the Office of the Future of Work to you all. As you all are aware, as part of the executive order and report establishing the Broadband Advisory Board, one of the tasks is to partner with the Office of the Future of Work and build a subcommittee on digital inclusion and digital literacy. So I wanted to introduce the office and tell you what I've been up to around digital inclusion and literacy and get your feedback on structure for the subcommittee and how the board would like to be engaged. So I'll go ahead and jump right in. For those who don't know, the Office of the Future of Work was established through an executive order from Governor Polis in 2019. So it's an office of one. I'm the director of that office, and I'm housed within the Department of Labor and Employment. And I'm tasked with working across state agencies and community stakeholders to, one, raise awareness about what the future of work looks like in Colorado, and then two, to identify policy and program solutions that will help us create a skilled and resilient workforce who can access meaningful and sustainable employment. And so as part of that work over the last year, after dealing with the initial pandemic recovery and response efforts, we've really honed in on digital literacy inclusion as a key focus area. And so I'll spend this presentation talking about that, but just as a reference point for you, we're also working on an independent contractor study as part of our effort to modernize worker protections and benefits, and thinking about target populations and access and their access to education and work opportunities, with a real focus on older workers, new Americans, and our low-wage workforce, which has borne the brunt of the impact from the COVID pandemic. So that all aside, wanted to level set by defining what digital literacy and inclusion mean as the Office of the Future of Work takes it on. So we're really looking at digital literacy as the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information that requires both cognitive and technical skills. And so we're thinking about this in terms of both the skills needed for people in their daily lives to fully participate in society, access the benefits they're entitled to, be civically engaged. And we're also thinking about the skill sets needed for education, training, and work. And I think many of us are thinking about this as a result of COVID, but I'll share some data on the next slide just about how these gaps in digital skill sets really limit access to opportunity and participation in the wide variety of opportunities that are available for work and learning. So that's really the digital literacy piece. When we're talking about digital inclusion, we're referring to those activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities have access to and can use information and communication technologies. So that's where I really see the connection to the overall Broadband Advisory Board and the work we're doing to increase broadband access and connectivity across the state, as well as the need for equipment that is web-enabled and accessible for all workers to participate. So those are the definitions, and when we talk about digital literacy and inclusion, that's what we're talking about and what we're referring to. And so our goal is really to create digital equity across the state, again, with the sort of three legs of the stool, if you will: access to affordable high-speed internet, access to affordable web-enabled technology, and then to access to the training and supports needed to fully participate in the online environment and for daily life and for work and education. And so just to add, I'm a big context person, so I wanted to share some of the data that we have available that is really informing this focus on that digital skill development, especially at the Department of Labor and Employment, really thinking about workforce development. And so these are three different charts from a few different sources. On the left, what we have is a report from the National Skills Coalition that looked across industries to see what is the digital skill set that workers have. And we see what this chart is trying to show is that across industries, there is a significant portion of the workforce that has limited or no digital skills. And so while some of the conversations around the future of work, think about or overemphasize the impact of automation and displacing work, one thing we do know is that every job across every industry will be tech-enabled in some way. And so as we look at these gaps, that's something we're really concerned about and need to address to ensure that workers across these industries can succeed in the future. On the bottom right, we have a chart of the lack of digital skills by age group. And so while there may be some assumptions we have about who really lacks digital literacy skills and biases around digital natives, again, what we see is that across age groups, across industries, that many people lack digital skills. And this is an issue that affects a wide variety of a wide amount of our population. And then on the top right, this just goes to show the importance of these digital skills in the workforce development world and in work and education moving forward. So what we see is that not only are more and more employers requiring digital skills to succeed or in job postings and in job descriptions, but they're actually requiring a higher level of digital skills. So moving from those very basic foundational digital literacy pieces to more of that problem solving and leveraging technology in a more advanced way. In fact, 77% of middle skilled jobs or jobs that don't require a bachelor's degree require some set of digital skill sets. And then 84% of small businesses are using at least one digital platform. So just throwing a bunch of stats and numbers at you to really emphasize that in addition to connectivity, we really have to think about the equipment and the skills that people need to fully succeed and access opportunity in Colorado. And so to that end, the Office of the Future of Work has been really trying to lay the foundation for this digital inclusion subcommittee. And our effort so far has really been focused on research and raising awareness about the issue. So we've been doing a lot of meetings with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance and the National Skills Coalition, as well as some of the other assessment providers across the country to inform what strategies we want to move forward in Colorado. Have been meeting with a lot of the other state agencies and providers that are addressing skill development and workforce development across the state. We've been building a framework for what competencies look like in terms of digital literacy so that we can have a common language when we talk about the skills needed and what the systems need in order to be fully equitable and accessible for all levels of digital literacy. And then have started a landscape analysis of who the current providers are. As you can imagine, it's changing pretty quickly as more and more providers are adding in digital literacy components in response to COVID. So, and on the raise awareness side, I've been conducting presentations to share this information and really make sure that in our existing workforce development reports and education reports that we're incorporating the need for those foundational digital literacy skills as part of those strategies. And so with all that, what we are planning to do in the next year is with the Broadband Advisory Board stand up the Digital Inclusion Subcommittee. We're releasing our initial report that has a lot of this foundational information so that we can really hit the ground running with best practices and a baseline understanding of what's happening in the digital literacy space in Colorado. And then over the next year, we'll be doing some pilots and more technical assistance to providers across the state. And so I'll just end with sort of these were just a few initial ideas around the Digital Inclusion Subcommittee that I really welcome feedback from the board members and advisory board members on, as well as the public, of course. But thinking about how we might structure the Digital Inclusion Subcommittee to really support the overall board while moving forward the issue of that skill development and access to equipment. So we'd love to have a balance of, community stakeholders and leaders, as well as some of the national research partners who have been taking the lead on this, and of course, any board members who want to participate. And I imagine, the first meeting to establish a clear set of goals for the next year that will help us move from this initial catalog and landscape analysis and foundation to really recommend strategies that reduce these inequities and make Colorado a leader in this space. We've seen in response to COVID, states like Illinois and Washington have really embedded digital literacy and digital navigators into their COVID response. And so I hope that the Digital Inclusion Subcommittee, in partnership with the advisory board, can really help elevate this piece of the digital inclusion and digital equity conversation as well. So I'll leave it at that. I probably talked very quickly, and I am very open to questions and feedback, and also just curious about how you all have been thinking about that subcommittee and what would be most helpful to this group.
First of all, Catherine, thank you so much for the presentation. You know, one of the things that's really has been challenging to me, you know, my entire time that I've been with the state, you know, talking about broadband, you know, obviously our major focus has been on, you know, just basic access. Do you have physical access to the internet? And, you know, I always talk about the challenge that we really have is a very layered one, because just because you have physical access, you know, the next step, you know, can you afford it? The next step, do you have equipment to allow you to, you know, get onto the internet, you know, so do you have a laptop or whatever? And then the next question is, you know, are you fluent in digital knowledge to take advantage of it? And I think this is really the issue, you know, that we need to address, not just in the state of Colorado, but I think it's nationally. And I just look forward to working with you. You know, it's, first of all, it's glad, I know you're a team of one, so I know how challenging that can be. But I think the fact that we are now trying to pull this all together will give us an opportunity to figure out exactly how we start making progress in this area. So I don't have any great wisdom at this point. I just know it's a problem. And the one question I did have is, you mentioned Illinois and Washington. And can you maybe say a little bit more about what you see that they're doing in this space?
Yeah, and I'm happy to share links to those announcements as well. Teresa Ferguson and Sarah and I are actually going to meet with one of the representatives from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, since they've been a big partner in those announcements. But essentially what they've done is really prioritize, in addition to the broadband development and deployment, they've also earmarked funding to hire digital navigators that basically, you know, as the name implies, help people connect to the resource they need most, whether that's equipment, finding low-cost internet or a hotspot, or even building the skill sets by connecting them to training providers. So the idea is that these navigators can be deployed regionally and really be that one-stop resource to connect people to that piece of digital equity that they need most. And so I think that's been one of the exciting things about these announcements is the combination of those two together and the funding to support that, as well as a call to action for philanthropic partners as well as corporations to help donate the devices and really scale that to meet the need. So once I get off video and everything, I'm happy to drop some links to those announcements in the chat as well.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Other board members, any questions, feedback?
Mr. Chair, Catherine, good job. Thank you for sharing and the excitement behind it. And, you know, as a public servant, you know, having passion, especially a one-person shop, feels overwhelming sometimes, but somebody has to be the advocate. So thank you very much. For Mr. Chair and the board, just point of order, I think we'll have to make a motion to create the subcommittee before the committee can meet. I think that's just point of order. So I think we have to officially, I believe, I don't know if Andy wants to, but we have to officially say the committee's formed, maybe accept who wants to be on it, and then I think accept as participants. But
yeah, that's a great question, Bob, because I'm just trying to think back to the executive order. You know, I think it actually stated that it should create this. I'm not an expert in this stuff, so I don't know, Andy, if you have any insight on that, on you know what we have to do to formally structure this.
Yeah, I think I can appreciate the initiative. I just want to make sure that everything is, I guess, planned internally. Don't know if we were planning on doing that today, but I think maybe some more thought should probably go into how this looks. The appointment itself is obvious, I think, but the actual structure of the working group and what it will be doing and some other things, I think that might deserve more discussion, but I'll defer to you all.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree with Andy. I think the point of my in the executive order, it does say that we should work with the Office of Future of Office future of work, within the Colorado Department of Labor for regular updates to the board on digital inclusion and literacy. So I do agree. I think that I believe our laws that we just passed, I think any subcommittee has to be approved by the board. And then going along with Andy, I would recommend that we get some sort of, I don't want to say charter yet, because I think Catherine needs to kind of formulate that with it, but we need to have some better alignment to understand what are we approving, what are the work products, what are the deliverables, and what are the outcomes desired out of that subcommittee.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bob. So I think what I'll do, so that we don't, try to rush something here, is, we'll take the action with staff to work with Catherine to structure, some of the framing for that, so that we could have an official motion at the January meeting. And I think this presentation from Catherine provides the good framework for, what we're going to try to get at, and we can do some work offline and also share some additional information with board members, on what things we will look for this particular subcommittee to do. So thank you, Bob. Thank you for raising that. I appreciate it. Any other feedback for Catherine? Well, Catherine, thank you. And again, thank you for being, an office of one. Again, I know how challenging that is when you're trying to stand things up, but that you've got the support, I think, of all the agencies that are participating as part of this, and we'll work with you to get those next steps in place, and really look forward to working with you, because I think there's such a bigger challenge out there around this issue that we collectively have to figure out how to address. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, Sarah, I will turn it back to you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a new agenda item. It's called Other Business. This is an opportunity for the board and advisory board to elevate any questions, comments, or concerns or ideas that they'd like the board to discuss. So with that, I will hand it back to the board members to speak up at will. Okay.
Clearly, everybody hasn't had enough coffee today, so it's okay. If we don't have any other business to bring forward today, that's fine. And we'll keep moving forward, Sarah.
Okay, we can move on to public comments. So I did not receive any public comment through our website. But again, Amy had some items that she'd like to elevate to the board. Amy, if you're available, now is a good time.
Great, thank you. I hope I'm not the only one, but maybe I am. Again, this is Amy Switek with Philanthropy Colorado. We've also been kind of focused on this issue and trying to elevate this for rural funders in our network. Just a couple things. One is, as far at the beginning, you mentioned the advisors, and I'd just like to suggest that you think about having rural voices as advisors, and maybe you're already thinking about that, but those that are based in rural areas and maybe have been working on this or have been, facing some of the struggles of doing this work in rural areas. So it could be a rural electric cooperative like Delta Montrose Electric Association. It could be, Region 10 or Northwest COG, or those, there's many others as well to consider. But I would just like to elevate that and hope that you will consider making sure you have that that on the ground voice too. Southwest Council of Governments is another one. Anyway, I'm sure Greg and others are, well versed or able to make some of those recommendations. The second thing that I just wanted to comment on was the digital inclusion and literacy. And Catherine, I'm going to follow up with you, but I think through this pandemic, we know of some nonprofits and some foundations that have been really doing some work in this area, and I think could be, good for your kind of bringing up those examples and getting from them some of the solutions that they've been doing on the ground, what's been working, and some of their struggles as well. And then I just also wanted to raise up the Blandon Foundation. If they are a leader in rural Minnesota, and they do a lot with digital inclusion and literacy. They do really amazing work. So I just like to raise that up. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for offering those comments, and you're serving exactly one of the purposes that we're trying to make sure is part of what this board is about. Because again, over the course of my time here, this is like puzzle pieces. There's so many different players and resources that are out there trying to address these issues, and so thank you for raising those. And the first point you made about future advisors, that's exactly what I'm looking to consider. And so please feel free to also just share with us through our website other suggestions you have about potential advisors, and we're going to have to think through, what do we want to bring in? But we want to try to be as inclusive as possible. And you're right. I mean, many of us know a lot of those different organizations that you mentioned. It's just figuring out what's the right strategy going forward. So, but we do want to be very inclusive. And then on the second piece, thank you for those additional pieces of resources. Because again, this is a huge problem, and it's going to take all of us to really figure this out. And the good news is there's a lot of folks out there working on it. And if we can just kind of marshal that into, a cohesive force, we'll fix it. We'll actually fix the problem over time. So again, thank you for participating. Sarah, any other?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to allow Mark to go first. Miriam, I see your hand raised. Mark sent me a message directly via the chat, so I'm going to give him an opportunity to speak, and then we'll call on Miriam. If you messaged me directly, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll call on you if time allows.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. I was just curious if you guys are aware of the rent pricing that the state of Colorado charges for broadcast tower locations. I did hear that the rent was raised 400% on state lands for the year of 2021. And if this is the case, it doesn't seem awfully productive to bridging the broadband gap for rural broadband and fixed wireless. And is there anything that, if this is the case, is there anything that your committee could do to approach the state to go back to following federal guidelines for state land rent for broadcast tower locations?
Mr. Petrochi, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes, Petrochi.
Thank you. I'll look to the board, but I am not aware of the issue that you've brought up. If you could share some additional information, about that, we could take a look at it. But again, I'm not aware of any particular, rent pricing from state land. So just don't have any information on it. But we'll try to see if we can understand what the issue is there. Does any other board members have any insight on it?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question real quick?
Sure, please.
Mr. Petrochi, do you know which agencies it is, or when you refer to state land, are you referring to the school land board land, or can you provide a little bit more specifics on that?
So we're in Durango, Colorado, and there are some tower locations on Department of State and Recreation. I forget which, but it's a Colorado State Park, and that those are the locations that we're seeing the rate increase on here in our location. So I believe it's, and that's governed by state parks and wildlife.
Yeah, that could be okay. That's helpful. Thanks.
All right, so Mr. Petrosci, what we'll do is if you could maybe through our link at our website, just share some contact information, your email. At least we'll try to do some follow-up to understand what's going on there. So at least give you some information.
Okay.
So you at least have some better sense of that. So thank you for asking that question, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, Miriam, if you'd like to speak up, now's your time.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I'm really excited about the board. I think we can do some great things and coordinate a lot of efforts across the state. So thanks for putting this effort in. I do want to echo Amy's that we need some more rural representation on this board. It's it's all state members, and we need some folks outside of the metro areas. And just to make sure that we are inclusive. And I'd also like to recommend that we work with our adult education centers across the state who are doing a lot of the digital inclusion already, our digital literacy classes already, along with some of our community colleges. So those are other resources we should engage with and that we have been engaging with down here in Southwest Colorado. So that's it. Thanks so much. And appreciate the time and everybody's effort.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. Darla, now's your time if you'd like to speak up.
Hi, everybody. I am from a independent telephone company providing broadband services. And like Miriam and Amy have said, I definitely would be very interested in being a part of meetings and whatnot to just kind of, I mean, we're providing the service. We know what it takes. So we would like to, be involved as much as possible, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Ms. Joseph, thank you.
Okay, Emily Silverman.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am actually with Parsons Corporation, but I'm here based on my interest when I worked at the city and county of Denver and worked on topics with bridging the digital divide. And then I'm on the board of Friends of Denver Housing Authority. So I just wanted to share, I did a fellowship program about bridging the digital divide. And, I think if there's a way to think about any parallel efforts, that this group can help inform or augment relating to housing authorities, relating to like Mercy Housing or, buildings that could maybe help when you think about a broad approach. And in addition, when I did the fellowship program, certain university professors are really doing some cutting edge work around how to distribute in a localized area with broadband and other methodologies. So I would just encourage that we think about it holistically, because I know at Denver Housing Authority, there's good internet service, but a lot of the kids who are now stuck at home, some of them can't even read even in their teens. And so as much as we bring it, or job, growth or other things like that, I think that there's a lot of work that can be done. And the last organization that I would encourage, in some way or another, is OATS, which is Older Adults in Technology. They have so much curriculum that they have developed that not just works for older adults, but also works for those who are struggling to really get involved with the digital divide and to really use the internet. So I just want to make sure that I shared some of those, that I worked with those partners when I was more involved from the public sector side.
Thank you, Emily. I think we had one last comment from Amy. Amy, did you want to ask your question you sent me in chat?
Yeah, I was just wondering in regards to regulations and barriers that might pose, if that's something that this group will be looking at, such as something I've heard from one of our partners in Southwest Colorado is coming up with creative solutions like the buses idea and having, free Wi-Fi for certain areas, but not being able to do it because of federal regulations. So I'm just wondering if that's something that this group will be looking more closely at. And I've heard things with land rights and different things like that as well. So
thank you for your comment. We'll take note of that as we move forward.
Chair, at this time, there are no other questions and our agenda is complete.
If there's no other business, I would like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do I have a second? All right, I'll second it. There you go. And if there's no further discussion, I would like to take a vote for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Nay. All right. Thank you all for participating today. We will continue to evolve this advisory board and really do appreciate all the participation from the public. And your insight and feedback will help us with the planning efforts as we go forward. So